Hello again and welcome to Southeast Texas Weekly. I'm Kevin Steele. Nice to have you with us today, talking politics once again with special regard to issues of political interest that are near and dear to the hearts of Southeast Texans. Joining me, as always, Godfrey Leggett, a Democratic activist in Southeast Texas, and David Bello with the Republican State Executive Committee. Good to see you, gentlemen, as always.
Nice to be here.
Got some important issues going on in the world this week. You know, I went to a George Lopez, the comedian, concert maybe a year and a half ago. And we filled the Beaumont Civic Center up, and disproportionately, as you might suspect, there were thousands, I don't know how many thousands, of Hispanics enjoying the concert that night. We have a larger Hispanic community than some might suspect. This week in the news, the Arizona anti-illegal immigration lawsuit and a law that was passed in Arizona that would be near and dear to the hearts of a great many in the Hispanic community in Southeast Texas. So I'll start with that. With the latest underway now, that Arizona has been barred by a Ninth Circuit judge from putting many parts of this law into place as passed by the legislature in Arizona. Let me get your reaction to A, what Arizona should now do, and whether further attempts at appeals is, in your view, a
Arizona should do,
policy.
and Arizona citizens should do what they should have done to begin with, which is call and write their congressmen and senators and get them all off dead center on comprehensive immigration reform. The Constitution of the United States makes it the purview of the federal government, immigration reform and laws regarding immigration. And we can't have a patchwork quilt of a law in Arizona and a law in Texas and a law in New Mexico. You know, it's not possible to operate that way.
Is this a partisan issue? Is this
I don't look at it that way.
an issue that comes down to
I'm actually
being
on the
Democrat or
side.
Republican?
It shouldn't be, because it affects us all. But I'm actually on the side of controlling our borders. I'm not a fan of just letting people walk willy-nilly across the border. I don't think it's fair to ask a Frenchman or a Canadian or a Brit to come through our airports and have to show passport, visa, where you're going to stay, what are you doing here, what are you bringing with you, and let Mexican folks just run across the border at will. That's not fair, okay? If we should control our borders, no doubt about it.
Are the borders controlled, in your view, Mr.
No.
Bello?
No, and I think people really need to understand what is happening here in Arizona. Arizona did not create new laws to regulate immigration. Arizona basically said, look, there are federal laws, strict federal laws, that are meant to control this illegal immigration, and they're not being enforced.
But Arizona passed its own law trying to say these things should be done at a state level.
Basically, the Arizona law grants the local state organizations the ability to enforce the federal law. And so, yes, the federal government...
The requirement, in fact, to enforce the law to the extent that if there's a reasonable suspicion that anyone off the street could be asked, where are your papers? Are you a legal citizen of the United States?
See, that is something that should be done anyways. And this is only when someone is stopped. This isn't you walking down the street and you see someone you think's illegal, you stop them. This is while you're doing a traffic stop for speeding, when you arrest someone for breaking into a house. Only then can you check the immigration status of someone who's a criminal.
When we hear somebody that is critical of maybe a supporter of the Arizona law and critical of the way the federal government has handled this issue, it always seems to be a Republican. Why is that?
Well,
The Republicans always complain right up until it affects them, and then they stop complaining.
And there are measures moving in the legislature in Texas that are considering this.
We didn't need a special law. For goodness sakes, they could check their immigration papers before.
Well, this isn't a special law.
And David made a statement there that, you know, we're not doing a very good job of enforcing the immigration laws. Yet the Obama administration, in the first 7 months now, has deported more people than Bush did in his whole first term.
Now, what can you cite for those numbers? Is that
I don't have
statistics that are-
figures in front of me, but I can certainly get them for you.
Who said that?
I know
The
one
governor
person
of
he hasn't
the INS?
deported. Was that his grandma? Who was in here illegally? I don't think he deported her.
I don't know that she's in here illegally.
Now back to the law, though. The federal government is saying that your law doesn't contradict our federal laws. Your enforcement contradicts our federal enforcement. Basically, you cannot make a law that contradicts our federal law.
Are you telling me that
So basically what Obama is saying is your laws are in line with our laws, but we're not enforcing them, and you are.
I just told
And
you that
so-
they deported more people the first 7 months than Bush deported his whole first term.
Are you then
How can
arguing
say
the
that-
case then that the government at all is really stopping
Kevin,
illegal immigration?
The Republicans constantly make misrepresentations, overstatements, and outright lies. And the louder and longer they say it, they want you to believe
It's
it's
not
true.
lies. Do you know how many illegal immigrants come, especially into Arizona? Most of illegal immigrants come over through Arizona, and they have a right to protect their border from criminals, from people who we do not want in here hurting American citizens.
I don't want criminals in here either, and that's who we deported
The only way
mostly
we
was
can
criminals.
find out if these guys are criminals and if they're in here illegally is whenever they get stopped for doing something they're not supposed to do, check their status.
And
I have to have my driver's license. When I get pulled over, I have to show my
Correct.
driver's license.
It's a misdemeanor offense in the city of Beaumont not to verify your identity. That's a misdemeanor offense for anybody.
And yet it's not actively enforced.
It
This
can
would be
It
actively
can be.
enforced in
Why
Arizona.
is it not actively enforced?
I mean, would
The
you be
police have to
offended?
enforce it.
Would you be offended if today you went onto the streets of Beaumont and you were asked, give me your legal status? Are
No,
you
I wouldn't be
an American
offended.
citizen?
No. I have my license right here.
If we lived in Vermont and people came forward, authorities came forward and asked us, "Are you from Canada? Let me see your papers." Would that not offend either of you?
Wouldn't bother me.
I've been to other countries, and when I go to other countries, I expect that I'm going to have a book that has their language. I don't expect them to know my language. I'm going to their country. I'm going to have to abide by their rules, their regulations. When I went to Canada, I couldn't bring my handgun to protect myself because that's their laws, and I'm going to respect their laws. And that's what we want. We want people. We're okay with people coming into America. We just believe that when you come to America, you're coming because you want to be an American citizen. You want to follow our laws. And by coming in illegally, especially criminals, that right there, you're already not following the law.
What would satisfy you then to make you think, okay, the federal government is handling its portion of what it should do along the border, thus Arizona should not continue with its efforts to appeal, and or Texas should not have its own
control our
legislation?
borders. We've allowed this situation to exist over many dozens of years, and it's our fault. We should have dealt with it a long time ago.
Would you support legislation in the Texas legislature that essentially does the same thing that the Arizona law does? And why not?
I would like to see my senators and my congressmen pushed to do the right thing.
Quickly, your view on that.
I'm glad you brought that up. Texas is taking measures. The State Republican Executive Committee has proposed that the first thing Republicans do next session in Texas is pass a voter ID bill. In other words, if you're going to vote, you have to show ID.
Let's get into that in just a second. That sounds like a great place for a break, my friends. And we'll be back with more of Southeast Texas Weekly right after this.